presentation online, I thought I'd come in and maybe touch on a few topics, because my concern at the meeting before was the fee that went up for instructors. We went from a 70 or 20/80 to a 30/70 split. And so what I thought was, when they brought up during the presentation that they provide registration, flyers, advertising, it also came up that I've had the opportunity to provide 19 years of a business without any real concern about cost, utilities, and other things that go along with running a business. So my point is, the rec center is the business. I'm a provider of opportunity for the community. My goal is to offer something to highlight the rec center. So it's not about me trying to have my own business. It's about me working with you and offering something more. So along the lines of how much it takes to do registration, well, you've got the Civic Rec software, and it takes 2 or 3 minutes. If they need help at the front desk, they can do it from home. So they really don't, there's no real issue there. And also advertising. I made flyers for a corporate career, and it's a 2 to 3 hour process with 15, 20 minutes later when you need to do some edits. That came up about the usage that I'm getting, and that question about paying rent. I've been paying rent for 19 years. It was mentioned that I don't do that. I do. And that's a little bit of my concern. It took 12.5% of my pay with this increase, and the city gave themselves a 50% increase. I just want to reiterate that I'm using 1,200 square feet of a 17,000 square foot facility for a 1% usage of something, considering my time and the square footage. I'd like to just close with the comment of what my goal is. I would like to leave you with a mission statement that guides me and my fellow instructors. Our mission is to enrich the lives of Sugar Land community through accessible, high-quality fitness and wellness programs that promote healthy lifestyle, personal growth, and meaningful community connections. As community partners, our programs growing participation, generating sustainable revenue, and working collaboratively with Parks and Rec to strengthen the quality of life for the Sugar Land community. Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Susan Ridley. Yeah.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is Susan Ridley, and I live in Woodstream. Thanks for allowing me to speak again. At the last week's meeting, I submitted some questions to City Council members to be answered, and I received an email response to them yesterday. I really do appreciate that. If the city is going to consider adding a sidewalk on the Clemens High School side of Sweetwater, I am asking if the city would consider adding a path underneath the bridge on Sweetwater, very similar to what they did on Sweetwater by the Fort Bend ISD Administration Building and St. Lawrence. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that, but why don't y'all consider doing the same thing at that place? Adding a pedestrian path under the bridge would reduce school traffic and enhance the flow of the students to and from Colony Meadows Elementary, Clemens High School, and even the Honor Roll School. Just imagine fewer kids using the crosswalk and traffic can move faster. I sat in it yesterday. So I think it would be a big help if y'all consider doing it underpass. On another note, as the treasurer for First Colony, I sign all the checks. I have noticed sometimes we have issues with the city's water bills, not getting the bills on time and having a very short turnaround time. I think First Colony is one of the top 2 water vendors for the city. Fort Bend ISD may be larger. We have over 400 accounts with the city. I am requesting some way the process of sending us the bills can be expedited or something, as the AP clerk has to enter all the bills into 12 different spreadsheets because we have 12 different cycles of receiving all the bills. Just this week, she noted 2 were not received on one of the cycles, and they were due on the 12th of August. She got one of those bills on Monday and one on Tuesday after calling requesting them. I specifically went to the office to sign those 2 checks and drove them here to this building to have them processed so that the fee could be waived. I asked for the fee to be waived, she said that she would, but anyway. It gets kind of old having to ask for fee waivers. We get the fee waived at the Mud Mine because we have the same issue with them. It's not the first time I personally dropped off the checks here for the HOA so that we can get them in. In short, I'm just asking for some improvement in the process flow of how the association can receive over 400 bills over 12 cycles. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Susan. Does anyone else like to speak?
No, Mayor, they have not.
Would anyone else like to speak about the comment? Okay, public comment is now closed. Next item for 2027 fiscal year budget workshop. Review and discussion on the proposed fiscal year 2027 budget and 5-year capital improvement program 2027 to 2031, inclusive of all funds and forecast. Will you have Shalay Stedman, Director of Budget?
Good morning, Mayor, Council. I'm excited for this 3rd budget workshop. Today we will be focusing on our funds outside the general fund, but these still provide key quality services that keep Sugar Land great. Just as a reminder, as always, we have staff keeping track of all questions and we'll follow up on anything that we do not address today. And like I said, we are focusing on funds outside the general fund. And I do want to highlight these have very restrictive ways that we can spend these resources, which is why we track them separately. They can't just supplement property tax in our general fund. We have another very full day. First, Devin Rodriguez and Elizabeth Huff, Directors of Redevelopment and Economic Development, will cover our corporation funds and our hotel occupancy tax, or HOT. Next, Katie Clayton, our Director of Utilities, will walk us through the utilities fund, and including solid waste and stormwater. After that, Mitch Davies, our Director of Aviation, will present the airport fund, and then we will jump back to our employee benefits fund that we didn't get to on week 1. And lastly, I'll cover our 16 special revenue funds and conclude with a brief cover of
Councilor
next steps.
Jackson?
Slate, is it true that expenditures for economic development do not come from property taxes but come from sales taxes that can only be spent on such types of?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are very restrictive on what we can spend on those.
Okay, thank you.
So with that, I will jump to our economic development and redevelopment director.
Good morning. My name is Devin Rodriguez. I'm the Director of Redevelopment. And to your point, Councilmember Jacobson, I'm going to cover a little bit about how these sales tax corporations work and the restrictions and benefits of them. So the Texas Development Corporation Act of 1979 is what created in the state of Texas the ability to have sales tax corporations for economic development. And the purpose of this was to have a dedicated funding source through local sales tax for a revenue stream for economic development specifically. So these corporations focus on creating and retaining primary jobs, as well as quality of life improvements. But the most key point is for economic development and for a city to have that dedicated revenue that can be used towards whatever the city's ultimate economic development goals are, is a really important tool to have in your toolbox when you are working towards the economic development goals for your community. And so the Economic Development Corporations, or EDCs, are governed by the Texas Local Government Code, and also there is an appointed board of directors. On the right here, we have our economic development impact cycle. It's just a great illustration to really show how the economic cycle works, that it all starts with jobs. And once you have those jobs and people have their paycheck, they're going to go out and they're going to want to buy a home or rent a home. Hopefully, most people want to live, as close to work as possible, unless you have other family dynamics or priorities. But that's what creates that demand for housing. It then creates that demand for other businesses, other retail, other service-based businesses, that generates that sales tax, and then that sales tax is able to be reinvested into the community through quality of life improvements or other levels of services in the community. So here is just a snapshot of development corporations in Texas. So there are 4A corporations and there are 4B corporations. The 4A corporations mainly focus on job attraction, retention, expansion, as well as critical infrastructure. And then 4B corporations can do everything that a 4A corporation can do pretty much, except for it can do quality of life improvements. And so you'll see how we have used these corporations in our city to make those critical investments and impacts. And you'll notice there are more Type B corporations than there are Type A. Type A was the first type that was created, and then Type B were created. And there was then the opportunity for communities to convert their 4A into a 4B. So there are some communities that have only a 4A, some communities that only have a 4B. We have a 4A and a 4B corporation. So in Sugar Land, our voters created the 4A and the 4B corporation in 1993 and 1995 respectively. This is, I had just mentioned, there's less than 10% of Texas cities that have both a Type A and a Type B corporation. Our corporations are funded by a 1/4 cent sales tax, not property tax, and for a total of a 1/2 cent of the Sugar Land's overall sales tax. And so this is that funding source that then gets directly funded back into the community for job attraction, retention, expansion, critical infrastructure, as well as those quality of life improvements.
Councilor, please.
So one question, so I think the goal is clear, of course, we want to create more jobs. I'm sure you are tracking the job growth within Sugar Land over the years. How do we compare to the neighboring cities for job growth? Are we growing faster than other cities, or we at the same rate?
I do not know the answer to that question, and I might defer to Elizabeth, or we can get that information to you. When we did a workforce study in 2021, and at that point, the number of jobs in Sugar Land was about 70,000, and I know we have definitely increased that number. It also had showed that we had, and I'm going off my memory from 2021, please, time has passed, children have grown, but I believe it was about like a 14% increase in the previous 5 years that we had in that job growth, because there was a disparity between the population growth that we had and the job growth that we had. We had grown tremendously with jobs. We had not grown so much in population. We became much more of people were commuting into Sugar Land for their jobs.
Yeah,
Follow up.
not for the budget, but I think it will be good to have a summary or some kind of a snapshot of how we are growing in terms of job compared to the neighboring cities.
Compared to
Even with time.
other Fort Bend County communities?
Yes, neighboring cities.
Okay. Councilor Watley.
Thank you. That's a good question, it's a great question, but can we add mitigating factors into that? Because you look at other surrounding areas, they have land growth and land opportunities. We are very landlocked. So our growth in this community or this city versus others need to be looked at through the lens of how much opportunity we have for land and business growth. So when we're growing with all these other opportunities that we're competing against, we need to look at that very closely.
Understood. Before I leave this slide,
Councilor Mitchell.
One more comment to that one is if the primary purpose of the 4A and 4B is to create and retain primary jobs, it's almost paramount that we track the total number of jobs to know if we're losing jobs, if we're adding jobs. We want to know the effectiveness of both 4A and 4B on our primary objective, right? So for me, that's a key KPI there that we need to be tracking, year over year. So if we can make that an action item, that'd be great.
so I believe that is a metric that we track for economic development, specifically as part of those performance measures for the department, and it always has been. In terms of, yes, a goal is for the job creation, it is also for the critical infrastructure, that impacts then the commercial areas, and it is also for those quality of life improvements. I said, before I leave this slide, I just wanted to touch on, the creation of these corporations was a very strategic decision made by prior city councils and the voters to really have this dedicated funding source that we would be able to then make those investments and really have a very aggressive economic development program. And so I'm gonna highlight some of the projects that we have been able to accomplish because we have these corporations on some of the following slides. You see the picture here of Sugar Land Town Square. The 4A and 4B corporation was a critical component in that project. So some examples of the projects funded through the SLDC or 4A corporation is the Central Prison Unit land acquisition, which is envisioned for a future business park. Smart Financial Center, caveat here is that that is an eligible expense under 4B unless the voters vote to be able to use 4A corporation funds for a 4B expense. And that is what happened in the circumstance of Smart Financial Center. So we went to the voters and said, we would like to use 4A corporation money to build this performing arts venue, and that was approved, and so that is why that is that funding source for Smart Financial. I mentioned Sugar Land Town Square infrastructure, various infrastructure improvements along US 59, US 90, and many more. Is also a component in the second phase of repositioning Sugar Land Town Square, which has been improvements to the streetscape as well as office amenities to attract new office users. And I feel like I'm missing one, tenant improvements related to that. Recently, you might have seen in the Houston Business Journal that the 8th floor of the Nexus Water building right here has been leased by a I'm probably gonna not pronounce it right, Primoris Services, but they do critical infrastructure in the energy business, and that has been really exciting because that space has not been leased for some time. So really a testament to making those investments and amenities that are being added to Town Square that really put them in a good position to attract that tenant. There's also the direct incentive program that has supported millions of dollars of capital investment from many companies, and just some of the highlights from this year specifically is AOI, Hope Biosciences, and Deliberate. But there has been 20 years of a history of really those critical primary job businesses in our business park, and mainly in the business park and elsewhere because that's where the primary jobs are located. And then for our 4B corporations, just have a couple slides here of kind of pictures of some of those accomplishments. And like I said, you'll see elements of the infrastructure, but also the quality of life improvement. So the pump track creation that was over near Brazos River Park, Constellation Field, the construction of Constellation Field and the reinvestment in Constellation Field has been a 4B corporation funded project. Most recently, our Lake Point Green project, 4B, was part of the investment in the public spaces or green spaces that are going to be created as part of that development. You have Mayfield Park, the basketball court mural here. 4B is a funding source for our civic arts program. So that is the way that we are enhancing our community and those quality of life improvements through public art. And then the lawn at First Colony Mall is another one. Again, you see quality of life, public spaces, activation of those areas. There's also been investments in the Highway 90 beautification and widening, the Museum of Natural Science. That 4B has been the main funding source from the city. We got the land and building donated to us, but the investment that was made in the improvements that needed to be done to that historic building and partnering with the Houston Museum of Natural Science on the exhibit space on the inside has been a 4B project. I have Eldridge Park trail lighting, the softball field, but really 4B has a history, like I said, of over 20 years of the investments in our parks, and you'll see that in terms of the proposal.
Councilor Watley.
This is all great information, I think, for the people watching, if there are any. Can you please just hit on a little bit of how our constituency might bring, like this morning we heard a great idea for a bridge, a walkway. How do we bring those ideas to us so we can consider them for 4B funding?
So a lot of in terms of the park and infrastructure type improvements, really come from our CIP program. So starting with the CIP and then looking at the program and seeing what could be 4A or 4B eligible from the CIP program. So I would say in terms of that, it should be something that goes through the CIP program first. Then we can check for eligibility of it to the statute and then be able to then incorporate it into whatever the time frame might be.
We'll follow up.
So should they contact their council members, say, I had this idea, and the council members send it to you, or just kind of how do they flow that?
I might defer to others, but I would say not to me specifically. It would be more of whatever our process is in terms of evaluating things for our CIP program and starting there.
Councilman Rondon.
Yeah, Devin, I'm gonna add, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think another source of ideas is a survey system that we do. We do extensive surveys, and a lot of the ideas that we get from here come from those surveys. And I wanted to make sure I pointed that out because it is so important for people to respond to those surveys. If you don't respond, we don't get any information. So there's a reason we do all those. There's a lot of different reasons, but one of them is it's a source of ideas for things like this.
And thank you, Councilmember Vonderhaar, because actually, losing my voice here. About a year and a half ago, a lot of our community surveys in terms of what would you like to see in our parks, a lot of it was saying shade, water. And because of that, last summer, the 4B Corporation approved several projects for 4B, actually midstream in the budget year, because we really saw the need to address that need that was being identified. And so at the Brazos River Park, you'll see that we had those massive shade structures that went up. There's also a splash pad that is about to break ground over at Memorial Park. And so those were specific projects that came out of what that community survey was telling us, and those, and kind of what was the strategic investments that we needed to be making in our parks at that time.
So regarding like the possible pedestrian bridge under Sweetwater, I'll email Natalie, who can send it on to engineering, and they can take a look at that. Because we do have several of those pedestrian, and I think it's a great idea.
So again, I would just wanted to cover kind of what are these sales tax corporations, how is it funded, why is it important? It has really been a strategic decision and investment in our community that without these funding sources, many of these projects may not have come to fruition or not in the time frames that we have been able to deliver them on. So I'm going to jump into just kind of a quick overview of what we have going on in the Department of Redevelopment and then hand it over to Elizabeth to cover economic development and tourism before we get into some of the financials. Just to kind of transition, these corporations are the funding source for our redevelopment, economic development departments in terms of our operations, but our projects and our staff and staff. So we are all city staff, but the general fund gets reimbursed for our time to work on these projects. And Elizabeth's also going to touch on the hotel occupancy tax at the end, which is the funding source for our tourism division. So here are our high-level redevelopment priorities. Obviously, everybody should know Lake Point. I will be touching on that in a minute. But Imperial, but Lake Point is also another big priority that we have. And that is coming along. Sugarland Town Square, I've mentioned. Our Great Homes program. Our Great Homes program is actually funded through our general fund, is not eligible for our sales tax corporations. So, but we did, council did previously recognize this was an important program for us to continue. And so it is funded with our general fund dollars. We are just about closing out for FY26. This year we had 65 approved projects. And one of the metrics that we have for this program is what is that public to private investment ratio? So every public dollar that we have put in terms of the reimbursement, what is the private investment that is being made? And our ratio this year is 1:7. So we have actually, since this program was created, it was 1:5, then 1:6. I think we actually hit a peak last year of 1:8, and so we're about a little over 1:7 this year. Our total project costs was 1.39 million. So that is the total investment overall of those 65 projects. And our reimbursements to date is 192,000. So that is a little bit on the Great Homes
So
program.
Devin, we added that category for homes at a lower, so how did that turn out?
Yes, thank you for asking. We had 10 applications actually for the program this year in that new kind of lower category. So exceeded what we were hoping for. So I think that was a good change, and we can continue that momentum into the future.
Okay, great.
Our fund grant, our Fostering Unique Neighborhoods grant, is now award-winning by the International Economic Development Council. So that was actually just announced yesterday. So we're really excited for that program to get recognized. A little bit about that. The fund grant, or what we used to call joint CIP, has been around for 20 years. But in the last few years, we really felt the need that it needed kind of a refresh, and really made some small tweaks, not necessarily in terms of the guidelines or kind of how it really was working, but really more in the outreach and the inspiration aspect to our neighborhoods and our partners. And it has been really well received, and we've been able to really accomplish some really great projects with the fund grant. And then with this last year, we launched the Retail Refresh Program, which is a grant program towards our retail commercial areas. And so we've had some success with that as well. All right, so covering kind of the two main priorities that we have for redevelopment, the Lake Point redevelopment project. Demolition was completed in May. This was the former Floor campus, over 1 million square feet of corporate office that was built in the 80s. It was really at the end of its usable life. It was not likely that another corporate headquarters was going to come in and reoccupy this space. So it was time for reimagining that. The city set the groundwork. We created the regulatory environment in terms of the zoning. We created a terms of an incentive sheet to try to attract a buyer to purchase this property. We were really happy to partner with Lovett in order to make this project happen. So it is going to be mainly residential, walkable, but very trail focused, with a lot more of impact on the public spaces. And so right now there's the platting and the site work has been is about to start. The preliminary plat is approved, so we check that one, and then we'll have a potential groundbreaking this fall. And then for Imperial, we have a lot going on, but I just wanted to highlight the timelines for the two main objectives, which is our master developer procurement process, as well as the Char House preservation. So we released a request for qualifications in February. We received 8 responses to that RFQ, which we were extremely pleased with that type of interest. Many very experienced and qualified developers. It was a good problem to have in order to really narrow it down to a top 3 finalists that would respond to our request for proposals. We have officially released that RFP, and so we are down to the top 3 and are on track to still bring forward a recommendation to City Council by the end of this year. And then the other important kind of main priority is the Char House preservation. So preserving the Char House for future use has always been a key objective of the city as well as the community, and funds to do this was incorporated into that $50 million CO that was approved last year. And so we have done the design work. A construction manager at risk was selected, Bellows Construction, and we are getting towards that process. We're going to have a community mural project start in a couple of weeks. That'll kind of be a lead up, creating some color on that site, and then bring that contract for the Char House forward to City Council for the consideration in October, with hopefully a kickoff happening at the end of October. So here are just some pictures of the current conditions of the Char House. The scope of work that we are working on is really prioritizing the permanent roof to keep that water out of the building, as well as replacement of all of the windows. This building is mainly made of windows. And so that is an important component to, one, keep the elements out to preserve the structure, but also, of course, improve the look of what the structure looks like right now. And then I mentioned a mural coming soon. The image on the right is just an AI generated to kind of get everybody's ideas going. But we have had some engagement with the community and our artists to get ideas about what this mural is going to look like. And then we're going to have a paint by number event on September 3rd, so the community can come out and actually be part of painting this mural. So we're really excited about this opportunity. And then we have partnered with our Parks Department. They're going to help us kind of put some decomposed granite down, some tables. I think this will be a great addition to the site, not only for people wanting to come and be, experiencing it and maybe enjoying the mural, but also we have the Children's Museum, Fort Bend Children's Discovery Center that is there, and they have a lot of school groups that come in. I think this will be a great opportunity for those school groups to be able to enjoy their lunch after they've had the museum. And then finally, I just wanted to touch on some of our operational efficiencies that our department specifically has been working on along with the rest of the city. Some of our reductions were eliminating some operational budget that was still existing from the long range planning division. We eliminated the Great Homes Design Program, so that was about $20,000. That was a really neat element of the Great Homes Program, but we identified there really needs to be some operational kind of improvements to really get it to work. And so we're going to see about what we can do to improve that before bringing it back again. And then reduce some cell phone and software costs, and we did have one position eliminated in the revised budget. I said FY27, FY26 is what I meant, I'm sorry. And with that, I believe that I'm now gonna hand it over to Elizabeth.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay. So, kind of piggybacking off of what Devin said, for FY27, our priorities are going to be the central unit. We have been working for years and years with many partners throughout the organization to get this site to be shovel ready. And so our ultimate goal is on October 7th, we are going to present to SLDC to update them on where we are, what has happened since we acquired the property, where we are now, what our vision for the site is, and where we would like to go. Our ultimate goal is to secure a master developer to help us bring this site to fruition as one of our final and only M1 properties that are left in the city. And then secondly, we've been working with the Hunden Group on our Visit Sugar Land 5-year strategic plan. We've had lots of great conversation and been working with our Parks Department as well. And so we are going to be finalizing that report. We've been going back and forth on some edits, providing them with some additional data on lost business from our tourism sales efforts. And then we will finalize that report, bring it to Economic Development Committee for review, and then City Council. And then once we've got the blessing, we will start implementing that roadmap. Then when it comes to FY26 accomplishments, I want to recognize that we've had a very impactful and busy year. The team continuously monitors our real estate market trends and brought forward 2 new programs to spur interest in our office inventory. As you all know, we've got significant vacancies that we're working hard to address. The Innovation Fund so far has had 71 interest forms filled and have had 271 actually be eligible for consideration. So Colby is actively working to have meetings with those different companies and figure out what the next steps are. A lot of them are kind of in the position of trying to raise seed funding and different aspects of where they are in their life cycle. So continuing to have those conversations. And then Jen has had over 15 conversations and has one interested landlord with the office readiness program. That is going to be, we've talked about before, a longer process of a program. 3 of the main buildings that she's talking to people about are on the market. So the landlords, and so she's having 15 conversations, but it's 5 potential buyers for 1 building. So they continue to go on the market. The costs of those buildings have decreased significantly due to those vacancies, and they're just outdated. We've got Class B, Class C properties And while projects are moving forward throughout the Houston region and the US, they are only locating in the Class A plus buildings. So there's that continuous flight to quality. Projects are picking up, so that's why we're really wanting to invest in our office program. And then as Devin also mentioned, hot off the press today and yesterday, the Sugar Land Starts Innovation Fund has been selected as the bronze winner for IEDC's 2026 Excellence in Economic Development Awards. So we're very excited about that. And then with life sciences being one of our top priorities, we've had two exciting announcements so far this year. First being Hope Biosciences, who's going to spend about $2 million on capital investment for their existing facility and create 15 additional jobs. And then we're also really excited about the continued growth of one of our homegrown businesses that actually spurred out of UH Sugarland, or UH AOI. The project started out at only $77 million in capital investment and has since grown to $279 million in capital investment that they will be spending. And that is in Sugarland. They've announced other projects because their growth is tremendous, but that is $279 million that will be spent here in Sugarland. They're going to be bringing 500 additional jobs to a building that has been vacant for quite some time. And then we're also proud that we supported them in receiving what's called a double jumbo enterprise zone. So they will get some reimbursements on the sales tax spent on construction materials. And then they also received $20.8 million from the Texas Semiconductor Fund. So this is a huge project, a huge win for us, and we continue to maintain their headquarters. So that is a really great win for us too. While they're, even despite their growth outside of our region, we are still their home base, and they're very proud of it. And then, as I also mentioned, we have our second life science project that was just approved to support Deliberate to build their new pharmaceutical manufacturing facility. They'll be investing about $11.8 million to construct 60,000 square feet and creating an additional 55 jobs in our business park. And then to Devin's point earlier as well, I kind of want to reiterate, like, while not every project gets incentivized, our continuous reinvestment in our mixed-use developments such as Town Square allows us to attract those high-quality tenants like Primoris. So we're really excited about that. They're going to take all of the 8th floor. We're running out of space, of contiguous space for us to continue to attract headquarters in Town Square. But that just is a testament to us and our reinvestment in this site and being able to locate this company. I don't believe it would have happened without that investment. Okay, and then FIFA. It has been quite an incredible summer for us. The viewing parties had over 15,000 attendees. These visitors were not only watching the match from inside of our fencing, but they also enjoyed local vendors inside the parties and throughout Town Square and the mall. Fortunately, we were just like Edo, Houston and Sugar Land have been very, very prepared for this. We had very few incidents. I think that last watch party was extremely hot, so we had a few more dehydration situations, but very, very proud. FIFA has had a lot of compliments to Texas, to Houston, and to Sugar Land for the fact that we've been so prepared and that we had very few incidents. For the 7 FIFA matches that were hosted, we did have 2 journalists that attended the matches. We had 8 site selectors, 12 tourism partners, and 30 Sugar Land business executives. This opportunity significantly deepened our relationships and will continue to keep us top of mind for future projects. All the data has not come in yet. I know everyone is very, very anxious for our economic impact. We are working very hard. The team's got some great stuff put together. We just got August sales tax, which is reflective of June, but we will be bringing forward an economic impact to y'all, some preliminary at the fall retreat, but then a full report to City Council will be in December. So we are working hard. We're anxious for a lot of that data to come in, but we will be excited to present that to you all. As far as operational efficiencies, we've reduced some costs and moved some money that was in a general fund into making sure that it's appropriately budgeted in our 4A corporation. And then we have some salary savings from 2 vacant positions that we currently have right now as well. Okay, so I'm going to do my best to be Justin and do a quick financial summary of all of our corporations. So anticipated revenues for 4B are at $11 million with an existing fund balance of $13 million. And an existing fund balance will support the $13 million in proposed expenditures for FY27. These expenses include our debt service, capital projects, which includes $2.41 million for dedicated park improvements, focusing on that aging infrastructure, and $300,000 $100,000 for the fund grant. And then we also have transfers to other funds. This includes general fund, where, as Devin mentioned, we are paid as city employees through the general fund, but the corporations reimburse the general fund. And then also as part of our cost allocation model, our debt service fund, which is the CO for the 2025 Imperial 4B covers 50% of that, and then transfers for our civic art fund. And then under operating and incentives, we've got our economic development program, sponsorships, town square events, incentives, and a reserve for opportunities.
Councilmember Single?
Hi, Devin. One question. In the incentive, how much amount is available for future opportunity or not yet committed incentive?
For 4B,
Yeah, this one, for.
I think it's all committed because it's with First Colony Mall and Town Square.
So for the incentive and sponsorship line in 4B, the only amounts that are in that incentive are ones, there's an amounts that we've already committed to in terms of agreements. That is different for the 4A corporation because of the job attraction expansion piece of it. But what we have is this reserve for opportunity, and that's the amount that is there for the opportunities as they arise, and that would be taken to the 4B board for their action. So that's one difference between 4B and 4A, that we do not have an open allocation for incentives in our 4B.
Follow-up?
So how much is that, reserve for opportunities, approximately? Out of
2
what-
million of that is reserved for opportunities.
Thank you.
So then we've got our outstanding debt. This slide summarizes the corporation's outstanding sales tax revenue bonds and the associated annual debt service. Series 2019 refunding bonds currently have approximately $15 million in principal remaining and finance several of the corporation's major community investments, including Constellation Field, First Colony Mall drainage and parking, Imperial Park softball complex, and improvements to Town Square. As shown in the chart, the annual debt service remains relatively level over the remaining life of the bonds at around $1.8 million.
Councilmember Jacobson?
And just to be clear, this debt is not paid for by property tax, it's only paid for by sales tax revenue.
Correct. This is 4B specifically.
Councilmember Single?
Yeah. One question is, I see that we have some excess fund balance available. Would it make sense to pay off some of this debt earlier than what is planned?
So
To utilize the fund and save on interest?
Absolutely. So we work closely with our finance department and budget department. We have a financial management company that are actively monitoring with the interest rates. It hasn't made sense for us right now. I think on the 4A side, we were approached a few months ago about a possibility, but that just wasn't enough of a savings to justify it. But yes, we are actively monitoring those opportunities. And then with some of the debt, you can only call the debt at certain time periods as well. So even though we might have the fund balance or interest rates, if they go down, we may not be able to actually go in and refund it because it's not a call date. So, but yes, we work very closely with budget and finance to monitor that.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay, so then this is the financial overview that demonstrates that we have continued revenue growth and a healthy fund balance to cover all anticipated projects and initiatives. And then we've got the quick 5-year forecast, which is projecting conservative revenue growth and a decrease in expenditures starting in FY29. Our bond ratio, coverage ratio continues to grow as well, so this will serve us well as new projects come along. We still, I know a question that has been asked before is, how much are we gonna need for central unit or for Imperial? So this bond coverage ratio and then our fund balances set us up very well to be able to support those projects whenever we know what is coming next.
Councilmember Single?
I had one financial question. It's a small amount. So I saw that there is 100K assigned for incentive to the Sugarland Town Square in general fund. Is that something which can be paid out of 4A or 4B?
We are working on that. The way the agreement is listed was put together. It is not, it's specifically for the general fund has to participate. So we have looked at that. We've been working with legal to figure out what the process might be. But yes, that is something that's on our radar.
Thank you.
Of course.
Mayor,
Councilmember Vetcher?
for the fund balance, is the reserve for opportunities that's unspent basically rolled into the remaining fund balance? And I'm assuming we're tracking that remaining amount separately?
Are you talking about fiscal year 26?
1927?
Did you freeze?
Rob, are you frozen?
Oh, low bandwidth. What I was asking about is the fund balance. Is the reserve for opportunities that's unspent, is that rolled into the fund balance? And then are we tracking that remaining amount separately?
For the reserve for opportunities, when we do projections, yes, we do, whatever is unspent, we do drop to the fund balance and then work with budget on the forecast for the next year. So if it is unspent, it drops to the fund balance. But we project out every year what the reserve for opportunities could be through this 5-year forecast.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. All right, I will jump real quickly to the 4A. So anticipated revenues of similar, about 11 million, and an existing fund balance support the 17.8 in proposed expenditures for FY27. This is a high-level overview of how the proposed FY27 budget is allocated. The proposed capital program includes 2.45 million, with 1.5 in major street repairs via panel replacement as part of the prior 5-year CIP. But what is new this year for us is 950,000, which is proposed for LED roadway lighting and improvements. This is expected to bring operational savings to the city's general fund and through reduced maintenance and energy consumption costs, which is exciting. The other new item is about 260,000 in our operating budget. So when, like, under the 7.8 and the operating, we are going to support planning in their efforts to address some zoning code development changes.
Councilmember Jacobson?
Probably guess what I'm gonna say, but I don't want it to pass without being pointed out.
Sure.
We're actually using sales tax, a lot of which is paid by non-residents, to support infrastructure upgrades, which would normally have to be paid out of property tax, out of the general fund. Thank you.
And then we've got 2.5 million in debt service on the corporation's outstanding obligations. The slide also summarizes the corporation's outstanding sales tax revenue bonds and associated annual debt service. And approximately 7.8 million supports the corporation's operating programs, the strategic initiatives, which includes the economic development operations, incentives, sponsorships, and maintaining a reserve for opportunities as well.
Councilmember Watley?
So looking at this, I see a lot of difference here. You guys seem to be really looking at using this fund, allocating funds to different things, using it to really subsidize the general fund. I mean, to your point, you're using it for infrastructure, you're using it for all kinds of things that you can possibly find to subsidize the general fund.
Yeah.
More robust than you have in the past, I think.
I think it's more visible than it was in the past, yes.
Yeah, because I see a lot of sales tax dollars going to where we used to have general fund dollars.
So infrastructure is a really, one of the easiest ways to use 4B or 4A dollars, and so that's where, like, we've supported even private corporations that, like, where Function 4 is in the business park. There was a road that was technically the city road, and the process was that we would require them to pay for those improvements, but we ended up doing an agreement to support the city's, like, it was the city's property, but the corporation that was building the new spec office warehouse space. So we've used our dollars to help support infrastructure as much as we possibly can.
Follow.
Just a comment, I appreciate that you guys are really looking to use these funds for that because it makes a difference in the general fund, so thank you.
I think because of the pressure on the general fund, that's why more fund is being used like that.
Like Devin mentioned, we work very closely with budget and finance and engineering to figure out what in the CIP is eligible so that we can help offset those costs.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and then on to our outstanding debt. This slide summarizes the corporation's sales tax revenue bonds and associated annual debt service. Series 2014A has approximately 26 million in principal remaining, which finance part of the construction cost for Smart Financial. And Series 2021 has about 3.9 million in outstanding principal for refunding of a 2013, so to your point of refunding, 2013 issue that originally financed the design for Smart Financial. As shown in the chart, the annual debt service remains relatively level over the remaining life of the bonds, around 2.8 million until the Series 2021 pays off in FY38. So then, this is a quick overview as well that demonstrates that we continue to have a healthy fund balance and continue revenue growth to support our current and future projects. And then this is the 5-year forecast projecting conservative revenue growth and a decrease in expenditures starting next year. Our bond coverage ratio also continues to grow, similar to the 4B, but not at the same level. Any questions? Now on to our tourism fund. So revenues essentially have been unchanged from adopted budget, while the change in the expenditures is from carryovers. For FY27's budget revenues, we are assuming a return to standard hot revenues without the impact of FIFA. Expenditures continue to decrease with the final Marriott debt service payment occurring this year, which is great. So the hot is officially debt-free. Tourism program is flat with no new expenses being allocated this fiscal year. And then for the 5-year forecast, we have minimal revenue growth and continue to build a healthy fund balance. We currently have no debt obligations. With that, I will take any final questions.
Okay, it's ready to move on. So thank you, Elizabeth.
Thank you.
Okay, next, we
Actually,
have-
may I?
I'm
may I-
sorry,
sorry,
Councilman
sorry.
Rondemar?
Just one comment. Great job, first of all. Thank you guys very much for what you do. We hear a lot about how Sugar Land is landlocked. We've only got 4% of land available for new development, but yet we continue to have these successes, and we have these current businesses that are growing and spending a crap load of money in our city with both the construction side of it and the operation side of it. And so that's a testament to the work you guys are doing, so thank you very much.
To your point, I mean, Devin mentioned 2021, our jobs numbers were about 70,000. We're up to over 90,000 now. So like, it's been incredible to watch our job growth be like this despite our population growth declining. Thank you.
Good.
Okay. So next we have Katie Clayton, Director of Utilities.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. Thank you for the opportunity for me to present this morning about utilities. But I wanted to start by just saying I think I get the easy job of standing up here and presenting while I have a staff of just over 100 who are out doing the hard work day to day to provide really core services to our citizens. And so this is a picture of a few of us, not all 100. A couple weeks ago when we had a day to kind of celebrate and come and have lunch together. For the agenda this morning, I'm going to talk about, I'll start with our utilities, water, wastewater, and surface water. I'll talk about a little bit of our FY26 successes before I start into the FY27 budget and talk about utility rates and the 5-year forecast. And then I will follow with the next two enterprise funds, which is stormwater and our solid waste and then stormwater. As a reminder, for the utility fund, what it covers is the administration, operation, and maintenance of our city's water, surface water, and wastewater operations. That includes long-range planning. It also includes capital improvements, as well as regulatory compliance. Everything that we do is highly regulated at the local, state, and national level. Surface water operations accounts for all of our activities directly tied to the Fort Bend Subsidence District groundwater regulations, as well as for us, the implementation of our integrated water resource plan and how we meet those regulations. And how it's funded, most importantly, is it's funded through user fees. So it's funded through our monthly utility rates from our customers, and we cannot and do not use property tax or sales tax for this program. To fund capital projects, we do fund it primarily through revenue bonds as well as connection fees from development agreements. And then we do have the strategic use of our cash reserves that with the goal of minimizing rate swings to our customers.
Councilor Single?
One question on the previous slide on the bonds. Are part of the geo bond also used to fund this, or these are separate bonds?
Separate bonds.
Okay, thank you.
starting out with some FY26 achievements, I broke them into 4 categories. First, talking about system reliability. All of our residents wake up in the morning and they expect to be able to brush their teeth and flush their toilets, and so that day-to-day operation and reliability is our core service. We produced over 5.8 billion gallons of water over the last year. That's a hard number to kind of visualize, and I asked Google, and it's, if you think about a football field, on average 45 feet high of water is what we produce every day. Of course, in the winter it's a little less, and in the summer it is significantly more. In addition to being able to provide reliable services, preventative maintenance is one of our key components, and so you can see there are 6,000 preventative maintenance activities. Emergency response is also key for us, as well as innovation, and so we're continuously looking at where we can improve. Over the last year, we were one of the first cities to pilot a zero discharge flushing program, which is tied to water quality, as well as putting a smart ball through some of our force mains, our wastewater force mains, to do a condition assessment, all tied to asset management. Customer service is right behind reliability. We know that our customers may have issues with or concerns with water and wastewater, and so we have a team of dedicated staff that are available 24/7, 365 to respond to customer concerns. And so you can see some of the numbers on those. From there, resource planning has been a continued focus for us in using data to inform our staffing, budgeting, and capital priorities. We utilize our work order maintenance software and platform to assist with that. And one of the really exciting things that we have done over the last couple of years, and Jesse kind of spoke to it, but our engineering team has really partnered with utilities and done some really amazing work and continue to push the boundaries, utilizing things like AI and machine learning to help us inform our capital planning and drive our asset management program. And so we have been recognized, if I move on to the next one, recognized and have been doing a lot of presentations both at the state, national, and even international platforms. In addition to those recognitions, we also, last year I stood up here and talked about how many times TCEQ, our state regulatory agency, had visited our water plants and wastewater plants, and they did come back this year and complete their cycle, and so inspected our city's main system, which is our largest one, and we had a clean inspection. It is a major effort. It takes weeks of staff time to prepare all the historical records and prepare the plants for those inspections. So very proud of that. We also have been doing a lot of work to continue to be part of the local and regional planning, water supply planning efforts, and I was appointed to the Gulf Coast Water Authority's board this year, as well as Margo Watson was appointed to the Region H Water Planning Board, which does the Greater Houston Area Plan that rolls up into the State Water Plan. So those are a few of the great things that have happened over the last year, and from there I will move right into our FY27 budget. For our budget discussion, there are major factors shaping our planning. I'll walk through our operating budget, our new request, and then the capital program. So from a strategic context, there are a number of key drivers that are shaping our utility fund planning. One is city growth. I know we've talked about limited expansion opportunities in the city, limited growth opportunities, but we are seeing growth for our utility department and planning for that. The Rye Hill development is a great example of that. We'll be adding about 2,300 homes. We've already installed 200 water meters for their neighborhood, as well as planning for Abbey Lakes and the Flora redevelopment. System resiliency is another core component of our strategic planning. We have a massive amount of infrastructure, and ensuring that we are rehabbing and modernizing that infrastructure to prevent failures. And then the last piece is that environmental and regulatory component, both for water quality as well as the subsidence district.
Councilor Single?
One question on this. Where do we stand currently, the difference or the ratio between the groundwater usage and surface water usage?
Sure, so from a regulatory, from a regulatory standpoint, we are required to be at 30%. We average, over the last couple of years, we've averaged between 38 and 40%, so we do exceed those regulatory
Surface
requirements.
water, sorry. Surface water is 38 to 40%.
Yes, yes.
Thank you.
Surface water, it's a combination of surface water and reclaimed water.
And just
Follow-up?
related question, because I understand part of the surface water we take from Brazos River based on our agreement. Is the bottleneck to is water available from Brazos River, or is it the treatment capability which we have for surface water?
It's the treatment capability. Our treatment plant has the ability to treat just shy of 11 million gallons per day, and we run it kind of at a base load. So it's the surface water plant is the main component of that. We've done a lot of work on the regulatory side of things, and there's been some changes since the last budget cycle. Y'all are all very well aware and supported us through that, but the Subsidence District did complete their joint regulatory plan review in the fall of 2025 and moved from there into reviewing and providing recommendations for any shifts associated with their regulatory plan. The board did take a vote in December of 2025. A number of y'all were there, as well as staff speaking in support of utilizing data and to drive those decisions. And so we were successful in delaying the next phase of regulations from 2027 to 2030. So in 2030, we're required to go from 30% surface water supplies or alternative non-groundwater supplies to 60%. They also made some changes for their regulatory area B, which is, you can see on the map, kind of the less developed area of Fort Bend County. These changes are big for us, and you'll see when I start talking about our capital planning, how we adjusted our capital plans to reflect these changes.
Councilor Jacobson?
Katie, you mentioned surface water, and you talked about percentage, and you said and reclamation. What kind of reclamation do we do? Where does that come from, and how do we treat it?
So we have, after people use water, it goes down their drains into our wastewater system, and then we treat that water at our wastewater treatment plants. The state does allow for further treatment of that water to a higher level to produce reclaimed water. So rather than sending all of our effluent from our wastewater plants, we do have 2 plants where we send that effluent to reclaimed water facilities. Those, that reclaimed water is then primarily used for irrigation and lake filling.
Thank you.
To give you some perspective on the revenues and expenditures, I have these 2 charts. On the left-hand side, you'll see our revenues. Majority, almost 80% of that is from charges for service, so water and wastewater rates, as well as our surface water fees, with the bulk remainder being our bond proceeds for our capital projects. And then on the expenditure side, you can also see the split. Our operations, our day-to-day operations makes up about 40% of our expenditures. Capital projects makes up 19%, and then debt service, majority of the remainder.
Councilor Jacobson?
So Katie, so the employees in the utility, they're employees of the city, but we transfer out of the utility fund to the general fund to pay the employees?
The utility, the staff who work on water plants and wastewater plants, all of their salaries are included in the operations portion of this graph. We do transfer out the 6%, and that's associated back to the general fund for general fund department services to utilities. For example, the engineering staff that helps support our capital projects, the payroll staff who process our payroll, the people and culture group who helps us with HR things. So,
Thank you.
from From there, these are FY27 base budget adjustments. These are our reoccurring budget changes needed to maintain current service levels. You can see the increases to salaries and benefits, as well as electricity, which I know has already been discussed for the general fund side. Some additional increases for us is contractual increases for Gulf Coast Water Authority and the Brazos River. Those are our water supply contracts, so that's the water that the surface water that we use at our surface water plant. We do also contract operations of our wastewater treatment plants with the Brazos River Authority, and so we adjust for contractual increases for them, as well as some additional miscellaneous increases at $90,000. We did have a reduction of services for our meter reading contract because we have completed our AMI and shifted that to all of our meter reading to the AMI system.
Councilor Single?
On the electricity cost, is most of it coming because of the rate change or the usage has increased?
There's, I think both. There's the rate change. We do have a new plant coming online with our Rye Hill development. We're building a water plant, and so there's associated electrical increases with that. Which leads into this slide. We do have $350,000 of new budget requests. Rye Hill operations is one of those. We're building a water plant and a wastewater plant to serve Rye Hill, as well as provide some additional services to Greatwood. The water plant, or the wastewater plant, will still be in construction over FY27. It's a 2-year project, but the water plant we anticipate will be coming online in early 2027, and so we've associated some of the cost associated with that. We are planning to do an asset monitoring pilot for our groundwater well motors. We have 23 groundwater wells, and those motors, we are seeing some failures that we think might have been preventable if we were monitoring them, and so we're gonna put some monitoring systems on those.
Councilor Jacobson?
Katie, will the Rye Hill facilities supplement Greatwood, or, because some of the Greatwood stuff's at the end of it, was at the end of its life a long time ago, right? Are we gonna shut down Greatwood or just supplement it?
So on the water plant side, it will be in addition to the Greatwood system. We'll tie it into our Greatwood system, which will provide us some redundancy and reliability in our Greatwood water system. On the wastewater side, we will be decommissioning our Greatwood wastewater plant, and so that facility will go offline, and all the wastewater will go to our new regional wastewater plant. We have $50,000 associated with our elevated water tank maintenance to do some additional preventative maintenance on valves and interior cleaning, and then some dollars associated with communication and monitoring systems. This is tied to both the fiber expansion for our water plants as well as remote monitoring for our wastewater lines. And so the FY27 operating summary is here, totaling $38 million, an increase from FY26. And you can't see the very top of it, but salaries and benefits, we talked about the increase of about $800,000. Purchased services is tied to electricity, and the supplies is the raw water supply contracts.
Councilor Jacobson?
I'm sorry, I asked this question before, but I didn't quite understand. You have your own payroll, or does the city do the payroll and you reimburse?
So utilities has their own staff and they pay for it directly out of the utility fund.
Oh, okay.
But that cost allocation that transfers in, if you think it's kind of like an economies of scale.
Yeah.
So instead of having their own budget department, their own people and culture department, they use city staff to help support that size.
Oh, okay. But the payroll comes right out of the utility?
Comes directly out of there.
Okay.
But the payroll team is in finance department.
And all the same benefits, TMRS
Exactly,
contribution,
all the same.
that.
TMRS comes directly out of utilities fund.
Thank you.
I'm gonna start out by talking about the FY27 projects. First, talking about our asset management program, I stole this slide from Jessie when she talked about her CIP, but recognizing that we have a significant amount of infrastructure and ensuring that we're investing the right dollars in the right place is critical to us. And so we do have asset management models. You can see the picture for the water lines, but we also have the associated models with a number of with all of our other infrastructure, including our plants and our wastewater collection lines there. And so for FY27, the CIP, we have a total of $25 million planned. This includes a number of projects, our annual projects for rehab of our groundwater plants, as well as our water lines, wastewater plants. We are planning to do a condition assessment at our south wastewater plant. We're building the new wastewater plant in Greatwood. We are investing in our west wastewater plant as well as our north, and so it's time to take a look at the south plant. We'll start with a condition assessment. You can see the $4.6 million is that wastewater plant diversion for the Greatwood facility, so taking the wastewater plant offline and diverting it to our new plant. We'll start construction on that to be in line with the completion of the project. And then we'll also be starting phase 2 construction of our surface water treatment plant. As far as funding for these projects, we do set aside some pay-as-you-go, pay-go dollars. We utilize connection fees. For example, Rye Hill is paying connection fees for their portion of the capital needs for the new facilities, and then we issue the revenue bonds. And then looking at the FY27 through 31 projects, I have them broken out by categories. So these are the 27 through 31 water projects. Again, you can see a number of them have dollars in every year. These are our annual rehab programs of our water plants. We also have some dollars associated with our elevated tank rehabs through there. We continue to invest in our generators at our facilities. And yep, the total there is $54 million, and a pretty steady investment annually of $9 to $11 million. On the wastewater side, again, you'll see the projects at the top. There are investments in our lift stations and collection and treatment plants, as well as some additional dollars in 28 associated with the decommissioning of the wastewater plant. And then we do have a large project starting for the planned for the north wastewater treatment plant there in 2030, associated primarily with the sludge and odor control.
Councilor Jacobson?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna ask you a surface water question, but it's on the next slide, sorry.
On the surface water side, we have $149 million planned over the next 5 years. 125 of that is directly associated with the surface water plant expansion tied to the subsidence district regulations. And so those regulations are delayed until 2030. You see we spend some smaller dollars associated with design and then start construction in 31. We will continue to be able to meet subsidence district regulations even though we won't have our plant online through our groundwater credits, which has been part of our planned implementation.
Councilor Single?
Would it make sense to prepone that project, 100 million, to start at 29 or so?
To start it earlier.
Yeah.
We could shift it forward. It would mean spending those dollars sooner. We also have been building a groundwater credit bank, so I told you that we've been over-converting. The Subsidence District has a program that we get credit for that over-conversion, and then we can utilize those credits to meet our regulatory requirements. So in our planning, it made sense to delay that capital spend and utilize those groundwater credits that we've been building through time.
You just increase your water bill earlier if you did that, so follow up.
Follow-up question was based on that after we do the plant and everything, the landed cost of water, is it more for surface water or more for groundwater? After all the treatment and purchase cost, what we finally land up as a per gallon cost, is it costing more for surface water or groundwater?
Yeah, surface water is much more
Surface water
expensive.
is
Much more.
very much, yes, it's a much more intensive
Significant.
treatment process.
Then it makes sense to delay.
Yes.
Thank you. Good.
Mayor,
Councilmember Betcher?
so on that point, I know a lot of the residents are always, expressing concern when they look at their water bill. We had been, front loading and preparing for our major capital expenditures, and that's why we had steadily increased the bill over the last few years, is that correct?
We did, after the completion of our IWRP, reevaluate our financial plan in alignment with the Subsidence District regulations and chose to start to slowly increase our surface water fees to build a reserve so that when it came time to build the expansion, that they didn't see a significant bill impact, and we would pay part of those construction costs in cash. And so that's still part of our plan moving forward.
And then follow-up?
Follow up?
And then, obviously, with water and wastewater, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes. Obviously, there's the processing of the water, and just to keep the equipment online, there's a lot of refurbishment and replacement costs, which add up. Do we have an estimate of what it costs just to process the water on a yearly basis for the entire city versus how much it costs just to refurbish and replace the equipment? And that's what usually shows up in the bonds, which are the larger expenses for refurbishment. So basically, to keep the water and wastewater running each year, what do you think it would cost on a yearly basis just to maintain where we're currently at? If you had a ballpark it.
I'm not sure if I can answer that off. I can get back to you.
You can just get back.
Follow up.
Follow up?
I was saying they can follow up with the answer.
Can we just get some clarity on that question? Are you asking what does it cost us to treat a gallon of water versus what does it cost us to run the system? Or are you asking what is the M&O cost of the department versus the capital cost? I think we need a little clarity on that question right there.
Okay, so yes, the second question is kind of what I was asking. So the M&O cost to treat the water, that's gonna be kind of a fixed cost year on year, which is variable based on the amount of water we consume, right? And then there's the other aspect, which is the capital cost just to maintain our ability to process the water. Kind of like with the fleet services, if we know on average what we're looking to spend every year, just to make sure we have enough in the account. I think that's really where I was going with that question, is knowing where on average we're spending just to maintain our current level of service.
Thank you, Mayor.
And so looking at the summary of those three, water, wastewater, and surface water capital plans over the next 5 years, you can see, of course, the big jump in surface water in 2031 with the construction of the plant. And so, looking at the 5-year financial forecast, you'll notice that we do have a net positive change for FY27 through 30. Again, that's by design to continue to recover on our surface water side so that we can pay cash for a portion of the construction cost in cash. And then you can see our financial management policies of maintaining a cash reserve ratio above 25% we exceed, as well as the bond coverage ratios.
Councilor Single?
One thing I noticed in 30 and 31, the revenue jumps quite drastically. Does that mean that the water rates will go up in 30 and 31? You know, from 99 it goes to 140 and 180.
So I believe those revenues are associated with the bond issuances
So
to
not
fund
the
the
utility.
capital projects.
Thank you.
So we don't think we can get that pushed back any later than FY30 on the increase in conversion. Are we pretty much done, do we think?
We will certainly continue to advocate for it if the data continues to show that we are minimizing subsidence.
Is that where we're at? Yeah.
Translating that financial summary into our utility rates, on the left-hand side, you can see the line items for our residential rates. We do have base fees as well as volumetric fees for water, and then on the surface or wastewater side, there's a base fee and then a tie back to your winter average for the volumetric, as well as the surface water. We are proposing rate increases for water and wastewater, but proposing to hold the surface water fee steady this year due to the regulatory delay. And then on the right-hand side of the monthly bill, for a 10,000 gallon usage, in FY26 is $107, and in FY27 essentially the equivalent of a 3% $3 increase up to $110.
Mayor,
Councilor Betcher?
for the rate increases, for transparency with the customers, was this a predetermined percentage step by step each year? Or was this a stepped dollar amount that we were going up each year? How was this determined in the past?
Sure, we use a utility rate model every year that incorporates our operating budget, our capital plan, the bond issuances, as well as it looks at our historic water usage, the number of meters that we have, the demand averages, and allows us to adjust, it recommends the proposed rates to ensure that we are meeting our financial management policies. And it's a 5-year model. And so, again, we just talked about our 5-year financial forecast, the 2027 rate increases, and then this is looking at the 5-year forecast for our utility rates. And you can see that we do strive to maintain a 3% increase, which is part of our financial strategies to minimize rate swings for our customers. And we are proposing to hold surface water steady through FY28 before starting the increases again, but overall maintaining that 3% increase through the next 5 years. And that is all I have for utilities.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and take a recess before we get into the solid waste fund and the stormwater, because you still have a number of slides to go, and we're going to get a lot of questions. So we'll reconvene about 9:10.
Solid waste.
Time's are wasted.
The most fun topic. As opposed to liquid waste. I know we talked about liquid waste recently. just now.
Okay, continue. Solid waste.
Well, now that we've completed the utility fund, we'll move on to the solid waste fund. I'm going to start by providing a quick overview. I will highlight some of the progress from '26 and then talk through the FY27 budget. As a reminder, the overview, solid waste enterprise fund supports our residential and commercial solid waste services. This includes municipal solid waste, but also recycling, bulky waste, and green waste. This fund is entirely funded through user charges. So the monthly solid waste fee that comes on residents' water bills. We do contract out this work with Republic Services, and they hold that contract for residential and commercial solid waste. It was awarded in 2023 and has a 10-year term. One of the things that I wanted to highlight was our first household hazardous waste formal event. Last year, one of the budget requests was to formalize this program. We did have a pilot funded by HGAC grant in 2024. And so in October 2024, we had our first big event. Then, like I said, coming back in 2026, based off of the feedback from our residents, we formalized this program. In April, we had our first event and served over 500 residents. You can see 37,000 pounds of hazardous waste collected. These are things that should not be going in people's trash cans, like electronics and batteries and paint. I saw fire extinguishers, the helium, the little helium cans that people use at home to blow up balloons. Those are also should not be going in your trash can. And so we had great success for this first event. We definitely have some lessons learned to improve traffic flow and get our residents through that a little quicker. And we do have our next event planned for October 24th. So,
Councilor Jacobson?
Katie, I was involved in the renewal, the selection process for the solid waste hauler. Would you, people say to me, why 10-year contract? Would you explain what kind of capital investment it takes on the part of the solid waste hauler to have a contract with a city this size?
I will do my best, because I was not involved in the process, but yes, on the Republic side, to start, we did form a citizen task force to help us through that process, to help provide feedback on the types of services that our residents wanted to see, and goals for our solid waste program. But I can tell you that on the contractual side, Republic did have to invest in the trucks that would serve our residents, the people, the training, everything associated with serving a community of our size. And so to have a massive contract like that and go out for bid on shorter terms, we need to present.
Councilor Single?
One question, but wasn't Republic doing it before the contract renewal? Because they were the existing service provider before we renewed. So they must have all the trucks and facilities.
Yes, they did. They did serve our city system, and then once we annexed Greatwood and New Territory, they were not the service providers for those communities, and so we did add on those additional areas.
But they had to get new trash trucks and things like that in order, new for the 10-year contract and stuff. And following up on this program, I had just tremendously positive feedback from the residents about this, and keeping 18.5 tons of hazardous waste potentially out of our landfill is very important. So I'm glad that we're doing the program again in October.
For our FY27 budget changes, we have two line items, both tied to our Republic contract. By contract, the solid waste services are allowed to go up by the solid waste CPI for our area up to a maximum of 5%. And so the 12-month average for the CPI for solid waste services is 5.2, so they are capped at 5% to the tune of $478,000. And then there's also a contractual requirement for a residential mailer, and so we did include that in the budget this year, but there is a corresponding revenue because Republic does reimburse us for that. And so the proposed FY27 operating budget is 10.7 million compared to 10.1 for FY26. And as I spoke about on the last slide, 95% of this fund is associated directly with the Republic contract, and so those increases are directly tied to the CPI. For the rates, in FY26, the contract rate for our residential customer is $22.97. With that CPI increase of 5% effective January 2027, the new rate would be $24.12. That is all on the solid waste fund. I will take the next couple slides to talk about our disaster recovery fund, why we have it, and what is the reserve beginning to build. And so last year was the first year of our disaster recovery fund. It is an established dedicated funding source for disaster recovery and emergency response efforts. It was determined that the need was after Hurricane Beryl. The city spent $6.3 million to collect the debris associated with Beryl. I believe we spent $10 million in the first, or excuse me, $1 million in the first 10 days. So it's a significant effort for us to pick up debris after a storm. And the solid waste fund, while it meets all of our financial management policies associated with I lost my train of thought. We do meet our reserves. We don't meet $6.3 million of reserves in that. So for Hurricane Beryl, we did have a transfer of those funds from the utility fund, and while we're waiting for FEMA reimbursement. So at this point, it's my understanding that FEMA has approved it at the national level, and so now it's back at the state level. And we're hoping that this year we'll see that $6.3 million come back to us. The funding source was a $1 a month disaster recovery fee charged to our residential customers and went into effect in January 2026. And again, the goal being to strengthen our financial preparedness for these disasters and reducing the reliance on fund transfers. And so looking at the income statement for the disaster recovery fund, you see for FY26 we're projecting $314,000 to be collected. That is because it was a partial year, so in 2027 we are anticipating the full amount of $424,000.
Councilmember Single?
Should the cost of insurance for disaster be charged to this account in the expenditure? Because we are taking some insurance for this, isn't it?
The answer to that. No. I think we can get back.
No, so this is specifically when we have that disaster happen. So we're not planning on spending anything right now on it until, and this just allows us to build that up for future costs like Beryl was.
Okay.
Like, I think you're talking about TML and things
No, so I
like
was,
that.
Follow on.
so no, I was referring to that if there is an insurance taken for disaster, the insurance premium typically could go in the disaster recovery as an ongoing cost.
So specifically, those insurance costs are connected to the assets that they're covering. So they are connected to those funds that cover those assets.
Okay, thank you.
This is directly tied to cleanup efforts. And then from there, we will move into the last fund, which is our stormwater fund. It is, as a background, the revenue generated expenditures are, excuse me. This is directly tied to two pieces. One, our stormwater compliance, our stormwater management, MS4, and as well as the drainage infrastructure maintenance program. So we did create this fund back in 2023 to help pay for the cost associated with this, and currently does not fund capital improvements. And so for FY27, we did reevaluate the implementation and the expenditures tied to this program, as well as implemented our stormwater coalition that y'all approved several weeks ago. So for budget changes and efficiencies, we talked about at the general fund a couple weeks ago, but we are planning to have a new expenditure directly tied to engineering cost. So our engineering team supports the drainage stormwater capital improvement program, and so paying for the cost associated for their staff to help us with those projects. The Public Works program or department does a pavement lifting contract, and that pavement lifting directly tied to stormwater of our roadways. And then a new revenue source being the new revenues from the Stormwater Coalition. So in total, $260,000 change. So the summary for this department, again, you can see really predominantly the change there being in those repair and maintenance and hopefully the salary and benefits that you cannot see quite from here. If you do want to look at this based off of division, predominantly this fund supports the drainage maintenance. This is the public works activities tied to stormwater, and then stormwater management, the purple portion of that being smaller, is tied to the regulatory compliance. And so for our proposed rates, we do have these rates based off of a tiered structure, and it's tied back to the impervious area of the property, so driveways, roofs would impact our stormwater runoff, and you can see the increases there of 10 cents for the smallest tier up to 23 cents for the largest, and then a 15 cent increase for our multifamily and commercial properties. That is all I have for stormwater and solid waste.
Any further questions for Katie? Okay, great. Thank you. So next we have Mitch Davies, Director of Aviation, to talk about our airport fund.
All right, good morning, Mayor, Council. I'm glad to be here to share a little bit more about the airport and what we've been up to. So I know I covered a lot of this last year, but for those that are new or unfamiliar, just a quick highlight. The airport is owned and operated by the City of Sugar Land, but the airport does run completely independently of the general fund or the tax roll. So, no property taxes are going to fund the airport. All the revenues that we collect help us be self-sufficient. So, which is actually really hard to do as a general aviation airport. So we're very proud of that. Everything that we do at the airport has to point to our organizational priorities and with our airport strategic plan. But I did want to point out that all of our organizational priorities do align with the city's strategic outcomes and all-in initiatives. So huge year for us last year and this year. So about a year ago, I was up here reporting that FY25 was projected to be a record-breaking year, and it certainly was. We finished FY25 with 4.64 million gallons, which is up from 4.23, so huge year. But amazingly, we're also seeing that same growth trend. So projecting this year to also be another record-breaking year for fuel sales, projecting 5.3 million gallons, finishing FY26. And so you can see that growth. I'll point out the chart on the right shows the growth that we're seeing in the last few years, but our FTEs, especially at the FBO, have been relatively stable. So we do have a few asks to help keep up with that growth this year.
Councilmember Jacobson?
Mitch, do you have an idea of how much of that growth is attributed to the World Cup?
It's not attributed to the World Cup.
Okay.
Unfortunately not. We've had some more based jets. We've had some big tenants bring more airplanes in, and then just the transient growth that we see a lot. Yeah, so I would say it's not due to.
Thank you.
Councilmember Watley?
Oh, that was kind of my question. What is your basis? What do you contribute the growth to?
The Chevron has increased, that hasn't happened there?
Yes, so Chevron brought their, more of their corporate fleet to be based at the airport, and they fly a lot, so that's attributed, it's not all of it Chevron, but Chevron, some other more base jets that are being brought in, so as more aircraft can be stuffed into these hangars, because there is a hangar shortage in the nation, especially in Houston area, so we have some tenants that want to maximize their investments, so they put more airplanes in there, but we see a lot of transient growth too. So it's just another indicator that business is booming in Sugar Land, Fort Bend County, and Houston.
Great, thank you.
Mary?
Councilmember Betcher?
We had funded some fuel storage expansion in the past. How are those projects coming along?
A great question. I will have an update on that. Yeah. FY27 revenues, as you can see, the vast majority, 85%, comes from fuel revenues. This is why we focus really heavily on our FBO as our primary business. Secondly, hangar leases, whether it's a hangar or ground leases, 4.7%. But we're projecting our revenues in FY27 to be $34.5 million. Diving a little bit deeper into our fuel sales the last few years, you can see that the growth being very steady. Not so much next year, so don't panic. That is really due to our runway construction project. We are anticipating being closed for 30 days. We are really trying to be conservative, that we want to make sure we're planning around the negative impacts of being closed. So we're projecting just over 4 million gallons, which is actually, if we can pull that off, it's definitely doable. It's very conservative, but that's still a solid year as compared to years in the past. So,
Councilmember Jacobson?
Do we have to suspend rental income or anything? Are we losing out on other things beside fuel sales? And are we going to lose any long-term tenants or anything over this?
I don't think we'll lose any tenants, but we are going to be suspending the rent for that month. some hangar rent as well. Yeah, good question. I can't promise that no one will move out, but I'm not hearing any of that. I'm not anticipating anyone moving out. We've given our tenants more than 3 years' notice, and so we've encouraged them to make a plan, whether it's charged a little bit extra and save that for the next 3 years, or find an alternate place. So a lot of tenants that want to operate, they're going to be going to some other airports. They can move their airplanes pretty easily. Good question. FY26 Airport Fund Summary. Our financials continue to be strong. We've had a great year. With the fuel sales is our biggest indicator of the financial success of the airport. I will point out that our expenditures were a bit higher than we were planning and budgeting for, and that's because of the cost of fuel. I've never seen fuel cost this much. This year was a pretty unprecedented year for fuel costs. But conversely, our revenues were a lot higher since fuel costs is a pass-through. So we did a lot better on the revenues, breaking all kinds of revenue records as well. Another thing to point out is we are ending on a higher cash ratio at 211%, and I'll talk a little bit more about what we're doing with that to help fund some critical projects at the airport. They are well above the policy minimum of 25%, and our bond coverage ratio is well above the minimum. So I did mention some requests that we have to keep up with the growth. The first one is 2 new FTEs for the FBO and with ramp agents to help keep up with just the demand that we're receiving at the FBO, as well as some equipment. We have some aging tug fleet. Tugs are vehicles that help tow and move the aircraft. We have some that are over 20 years old, so it's time to start phasing some of these out. And our staff really like the electric tow barless tug. It helps us move aircraft a lot faster. They don't have to bring and pick up these very heavy tow bars and shift and move planes, whether they're out on our ramp areas or in our hangars, a lot faster. So we have a request for one of those, as well as an electric belt loader. You can see on the right there. You see a lot of those at commercial airports. Because the aircraft are so big and the cargo bays are so high up that it's just very difficult to get luggage up there. But the reality is we have some of these large aircrafts, these large corporate aircraft that service that come to our FBO. Gulfstreams, Global Expresses, some of the big Falcons. And these cargo bays are actually pretty high, and we've noticed some of our staff actually having to pick up some really heavy luggage and actually have to lift it over their head, which is not, ideal. So purchase of a belt loader will help our staff get luggage up to these bigger aircraft more efficiently and safer as well. Airfield pavement marking program. Our maintenance team does a fantastic job doing a lot of stuff in-house to keep things running. But our markings are struggling. The Texas sun makes it very difficult to keep our markings fresh, and our staff, it's also very technically challenging too, FAA specification requirements. And our staff get very busy mowing, and the reality is some of our markings are struggling, so we're looking to get some funding to outsource that to the pros, to get some contractors to help us with that. We're looking to budget a second CBP officer, and really what this is for is us pursuing a business deal with a large international charter company that could have upwards of 30 passengers per flight. Our current single officer could not accommodate that. It goes beyond the CBP policy. So if we can have a second officer, we could definitely secure a business deal. However, if that does not happen, we will not move forward with a second officer.
Councilor Jacobson?
So are these officers FTEs, or do we just call them in hourly when it's needed?
They do not count as FTEs for the airport because they're federal Customs and Border Protection officers. We have our one officer that is stationed at our airport facility, at the CBP facility, Monday through Friday. Now, if there are late call-outs, that officer can either stay behind or come in early, or if it's on the weekend, or if that officer just needs to get home, they can bring in someone usually from Hobby or Bush to come fill that gap.
About how many international flights do we have per month on average? Well, whatever figure, whatever time frame works for you.
3 or 4 per day on average.
3 or 4 per day, okay.
Yeah, so I mean, some days it's less, some days it's more. We get a lot of international traffic on the weekends, actually. It's pretty amazing. I think we have people that like vacationing but yeah, we get them on the weekends because we get the bill from CBP for overtime, and it's quite substantial. A lot of after hours or early flights, weekend flights.
Question.
Councilor Watling?
Thank you. Are those fees, are any of this reimbursable? I mean, does the client pay for this service to where some of these are offset?
Yeah, absolutely, good question. So the entire CBP operation would be offset by all the user fees. So when someone clears customs, depending on the number of people on board, will be dependent on their fee. If they have international garbage, because that is regulated, you can't just take that garbage and throw it away from a different country. So we do charge a recovery fee for that because we have to process that internally, as well as after hours. If they come in outside of basically Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, they'll get charged a late call-out fee because we get hit with an overtime fee from CBP. So all of this absolutely is offset. If you look at the numbers with CBP, we were showing some negatives due to renovation costs in the facility, but really the core of the operation is self-sufficient through user fees. We have some safety and operational enhancements with our airport operations division. One of them, for example, is utilizing a lightning detection system, so it will sound an alarm whenever lightning is within 3 miles, so that our staff that are outside get some a cue that we need to start looking at coming inside or altering our services. Our staff are outside all day, every day, 365 days a year, and if anyone knows anything about Houston in the summertime, is we have a lot of lightning and thunderstorms. This will really help our staff be safe out there. Same thing with the markings, our landscaping, same thing. What we've been doing it internally, and our staff do as best of a job that they can, but they're also not professional landscapers. They get very busy doing mowing and a lot of other, a lot of high priority routine tasks. And sometimes our landscaping can struggle a little bit, so we're looking to outsource that to some professionals. That way they can really focus on keeping the landscaping look top notch for our luxury gateway to Houston brand with our FBO. Co-op marketing program with AdFuel. So our fuel provider has a co-op program where they give us ½ cent per gallon that we sell. But we sell quite a bit of fuel, so we can get access to those funds. And so this is actually a $0 budget request, because anything that we will spend under this program will be completely reimbursed by our fuel provider. So that number may increase or fluctuate depending on how much fuel we're selling, but that will help get us access to that co-op. Lastly, base budget adjustments. This is just looking at about $39,000, $40,000 increase. This is just due to CIP increases in contracts. The costs are increasing for existing services that we're providing. The runway project. I know I sent a FYI a couple weeks ago. Super disappointing. The bids came in a lot higher than our engineers were estimating. The good news, it was competitive bid, so it wasn't like we just got one really highball bid. But it's an important project. This is an important project. We've been working for years on this, and it's definitely heartbreaking to see, you know, it come so high. But the good news is we've been doing very well. We have cash reserves that can help fund this. So we're looking at using $10.1 million in addition to what we had set aside for FY26, which was $10 million, to make sure we can keep the project going. But the commitment is from us is that we will continue to advocate to the FAA and the state for some more funding. The grants money that we have right now, it's a fluid number. I'm hoping to get that number higher. Any grant funding that we get in addition to what we have now will go right to the project so we can lower that amount that we have to pay. Other projects in FY27, Councilmember Betcher, this is to answer your question on the fuel farm. We're finished with design and we're going to be getting permitting here soon and then bidding the project. So in FY27, we will be starting the construction of the fuel farm. And so some of our cash is also going to be offsetting some of the additional costs that we have at the fuel farm, as well as looking at tentatively on phase 1 of a terminal building renovation project. Our terminal, believe it or not, is over 20 years old now. And so it's needing a little TLC. We also have some underutilized space in the terminal that we want to optimize that space a little bit better. But that project's probably going to be one that we keep a very close eye on, because if we just don't get some of the grant funding that we're hoping for, that project could be utilized to help with the runway. A little bit more of a higher priority for us.
Councilmember Bonifar.
Just to clarify, the runway project is a requirement placed on us by FAA, right? It's not an optional project.
It's not so much the FAA's requiring, well, so the FAA is requiring us to improve our safety areas. And so we decided that we wanted to combine the two. It's like, okay, we internally recognized that our pavement was reaching its useful life. And so we had looked at doing thorough pavement analysis, and the determination was, yes, that pavement built in 1985 has reached its useful life. And then at the same time, the FAA has been working with us to have compliant runway safety areas. So we combined the two projects. So yes, the FAA is requiring us to do this, but not so much on the pavement. That is something internally we have to justify to the FAA that, hey, our pavement's in bad shape. We keep it safe because we fix it every day, but something's got to be done with it. We got to start planning. And so we have to justify that to the FAA. So I hope that answered that question.
Thank you.
Looking at the remaining for the 5-year CIP, we are looking to design and construct our admin building, and that will open up some space in the terminal, so maybe a phase 2 terminal renovation. So we're hoping to get that done within the next 5 years, as well as completing the construction of our terminal ramp expansion and vertiport project. So we are just starting on the design of that this year. We just finalized that study. And so our commitment is to have an operational vertiport by the end of the decade, so we are in line with that. Our attention is really, oh, yes.
On the vertiport, can we make sure that it is suitable for operating by multiple companies? It is not designed to a particular operator only?
No, that's a good point. And
Get rid of it.
someone knows how to fix this stuff.
Just a heads up, you guys are muted.
Oh, wait, yeah, we can hear you, yeah, what? Okay, Councilmember Jacobson?
Yeah, in this interlude, is the new runway going to give us any additional capacity, like size-wise or frequency of?
No, we, years ago in a master plan, looked at, do we widen the runway? Because that could. The problem is, in the corporate world, there's not a ton of activity with like wide-body aircraft, like the 767, to really offset the cost. We wouldn't be able to justify to the FAA the demand to have a wider runway. We would have to pay 100% of that 50 extra feet, whereas some commercial airports get the luxury of, they can justify that because they have the airlines, and so also the FBOs get access to some of these bigger runways. So that is one of the benefits if you are at a commercial airport, is the runways are really kind of catered to the airlines, and you can justify that. We would not be able to justify that. We would have to pay like 100% of those costs, and it's significant. We did not see the ROI for the increase in business activity to really pay off an investment like that.
Thank you.
Councilor Bedford, did you have anything to say?
No, I was just clarifying or correcting the technical issues from your side. I think we're good now.
Yeah, okay, just checking.
Looking at the department financial summary that compares, looking at last year and this year, I'll point out you do see an increase in salary and benefits. That's due to two new FTEs, as well as the increases that the city's seeing with TMRS and benefits, as well as professional services. And just as a reminder, the professional services is attributed to the second CBP officer, but those costs we will not carry those costs if we do not secure that additional business. If you do, last thing I want to point out on this, you actually see costs going down next year overall, and that's due to the cost of fuel that we don't have to pay for while we're closed for a month. So the cost of that. Revenues will go down, but our costs will go down as well. The FY27 fund summary. So even despite being closed for a month, we do project a solid year. You see our expenditures higher than normal. That's due to cash flowing some of these important projects. But even then, we still are projecting to end with still a healthy 74% cash ratio, which is well above the 25% minimum. And the bond coverage ratio is still solid above the 1.25.
Councilor Single?
Yeah, so that expenditure includes that 20 million of our portion of the expenditure?
Correct.
Thank you.
Looking at the remaining years with the airport financials, it's solid. I mean, we're very confident that things are going to go very well. Over the next few years, we do plan on increasing our cash reserves, so that we'll keep a close eye on that and see what kind of projects we can fund, or what are we doing with borrowing. But we also want to be very conservative that we're not, while I would love the idea that we just bounce right back up to a 5.3 million gallon year the next year after the runway's open, we are conservatively planning on a bit of a slower recovery. It could take a year or two before we really get back to where we're at, so we're planning for that.
Any further questions? Okay, Councilor Jacobson?
Going back to the last slide, what's the deal with FY31? Why are we, the revenues go
38, or 30. So project, we have the admin building in FY30 that we have planned for.
It includes the bond issuances and the revenues here. And so it's not just like operating revenue.
Oh, okay, that makes a lot of sense, thanks.
Well, I hear great things about the airport. And yesterday I heard that the pilots like the cookies. The pilots like the cookies. I heard
Pilots
that.
like the
I heard that yesterday.
We'll take the cookies away.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Mitch. Next, we have Paula Kishka, Director of People and Culture. We're going to talk about benefits.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So this morning, I'm going to be talking to you about the benefits fund. And just as a brief reminder, the benefits that you see listed on the left side of the screen, those are, Those are the group benefits that the city does provide, either wholly or in concert with employees. And on the right side, these are our optional benefits. These are the, these are the benefits that we offer employees to pick and choose based on their needs and personal situations. So as y'all will remember, in '26, we have conducted a comprehensive RFP for almost all of the major benefits that the city does provide to the employees. As we are winding down that RFP, we have determined that Cigna Healthcare provided the most competitive proposal for our self-funded medical plan, including all of the elements of the medical plan other than stop loss. We'll be bringing that one back to council within the next couple of months. We are anticipating a 5.6% increase in program costs, and this is primarily based on the fact that we are self-funded for claims. We're not anticipating any major changes in our plan designs as we move forward with the contracts. And so that brings us to dental. We are fully insured for our dental program, and we found that, again, Cigna provided the most competitive proposal. We are seeing a slight increase in our premiums for the dental plan, but those will be rate capped for 2 years, a guarantee. So that will help us in planning going forward. Any questions? All right. Our vision program, although it is a voluntary vision program, it is tied and thought collectively with dental and vision. This year, or for '27, we will be moving our voluntary vision program to Blue Cross Blue Shield. We did receive through the best and final program offer process an 8.4% increase. But with that, we were able to have a plan that is consistent with our current plan, as well as a second plan that has some enhanced benefits. And again, these premiums are guaranteed for 4 years, and they are what we call a pass-through. The city doesn't contribute to this other than the administrative costs of managing the plan and managing the payment of the premiums. And the rates, like I said, are guaranteed for 4 years. With the life and disability plans, here we have plans that the city provides, and we have plans that employees have as an option. On the city provided side, that's our basic life and our long-term disability. Overall, we are going to see a slight decrease in the premiums for those 2 plans. Our voluntary life insurance, that's the additional insurance coverage that employees can elect. Those rates are going to remain unchanged. And short-term disability, we are seeing a slight increase in those rates, but that increase is tied primarily to the fact that we are enhancing that benefit based on feedback we receive from employees. And again, rates will be guaranteed for 3 years, so this will give employees some consistency and opportunity to plan for those things as life happens. And then finally, as part of the RFP, we shopped out our FSA and HSA administration plans, and we found that our current vendors provided the most competitive rates and the best option for the city at this time, and those rates are coming back with a 3-year guarantee. So we would anticipate staying with those vendors for '27 and forward. This brings us to our benefits burden. So as you see from the slide, we are projecting our benefits burden for FY27 to be 32.4%. And this is well below the BLS reported benefits burden for the private sector, 500 plus employees. And as you will remember from the city's compensation philosophy, the only item that we benchmark solely to the private sector is our benefits burden, to make sure that we remain competitive like any other operation would be. And that brings us to the benefits fund. So here you can see our budget for '27. Our benefits fund, we have a beginning fund balance. We anticipate to be around 4.79 million. Because again, 26 is still projections. We haven't finished the fiscal year. But we are pretty confident in these numbers. Our revenues and expenses are coming in very close to one another, and our reserve for claims, we see that we will be growing that slightly. The reserve for claims, we set that typically at 20% of expected claims, and then that leaves us a fund balance. So where we are anticipating our claims to go up slightly, we need to make sure that our reserve is healthy enough to account for that increase.
Mayor?
Councilman Batchelor?
I noticed the revenue projection versus budgeted is a little bit less. Can you comment on that?
That has to do with, that's a good question, just a second. That has to do with, I believe that tied back to the fact that we have eliminated some positions. So when we were at this time last year, we knew that was gonna happen, but we didn't know what the numbers were gonna look like and how that was gonna play out. And so because that has come to reality, that number has changed slightly.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Awesome, done. There's my slide. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Okay, next, Soleil is back with us.
So next, we're gonna talk about our special revenue funds. And I wanna say that they're special, not because they're more important, but more of their resources are legally or administratively restricted to specific purposes. So when we walk through these funds, the key question is not only how much is available, but what is the fund permitted to fund to support. So starting out with our Animal Services Donation Fund, we receive donations from residents, non-residents, businesses throughout the year. These funds are used to enhance, not replace the services provided by the general fund, and support things like special medical needs and other supplemental items. The fund also accounts for grants awarded to the shelter. I do want to highlight this does not include the donations towards the new animal shelter specifically for those CIP. Those are with the Legacy Foundation, and then they will go directly into the CIP fund as we receive them. So we are ending the fund balance planned about $160,000. The next 4 funds are connection with our court. With every conviction, the city receives $14. So this is the first one, is our court security fund, which receives $4.90, and is only meant to be used for the court security thing. So the plan to use this fund for next year is in connection with the renovation of the police headquarters, our current one, moving court to a different location and making sure that area is secure.
Question?
Councilman Watley?
Thank you, Mayor. So these are allocated only for these specific uses?
Yes. Yes, they can only use specifically for court security. This next one is also a court one connected to conviction fees. Sorry that I'm struggling with that. This one also receives $4 of that $14 fee. And it's specifically for technology. We've been using it. Last year was, or 26 is the first year for our e-citation licenses for police officers, which really helps the administrative burden on our court when it already comes in electronically rather than a paper form for tickets. The third one, another court one, is our truancy. This collects $5 and goes towards 50% of our juvenile police coordinator. And so with that, our ending fund balance is about $150,000. Going fairly quickly, so let me know if there's any questions as we go along. Next is our juror fund. This generates just 10 cents So it's not a very big fund, and this year we are going to be using it to pay for, the reimbursement, what is it?
Pre-printed summons.
Yes, our summons for pre-jurors. So, just a small 1,000 fee, or expenditure. Next, jumping into our PIDs, we have 2 PIDs at the City of Sugar Land, Enclave at River Park. How it works is when we start these areas of development, it's very similar to a MUD, except for after review, the city decided to use a PID, which reimburses the development once they meet a certain criteria. So Enclave has been with the city for quite a while, and the funding has already covered, so there is no PID assessment assessed these residents. And the debt is scheduled to be paid off in 2034. Our next one is our PID Park at Eldridge. This one is our newer PID. It's the 21.4 acre tract and has 89 lots. Tax year 24 was the first year assessments at that $935 per lot. Tax year 26, or for fiscal year 27, we are keeping that same assessment at the $935. The agreement stipulates that the reimbursement to the developer for infrastructure will be triggered when the certified assessed values of the district reaches 25.5 million, and they reached that in fiscal year 26. And so we did pay that payment back to the developer after an external audit made sure they made all of their milestones as required by contract. So that's where you're seeing that expenditure of the 1.7 million in fiscal year 26.
Councilor Watley?
Thank you. This PID is built out, right?
Yes.
This is complete. So the assessments will continue to be the same revenue ongoing
Yes.
until we complete the reimbursement total?
Yes. So part of it is the city will contribute 50% of the property tax in that area. However, this one, we are capped at $52,590 per year for that contribution. So that PID assessment may go down in the future as. We also have 2 reduction funds. The first is our Riverstone. This is for future annexation of these MUDs in the future. So the first one is our Riverstone. The city provides out-of-service fees for the district for the use of raw or reused water connected with utilities, and a portion of that is deposited into this reduction fund to ensure in the future we can annex that area. The second is also our Terra Plantation. We capture 20% out of city fee through the groundwater reduction plan agreement, with these revenues being deposited for use of future SBA, which will determine mutual agreed upon uses for all of that. So.
May I?
Yeah, follow.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if I want to ask this. With annexation laws as they are now, we're building this fund. What happens in the situation with annexation as it is? Is that a stupid question to ask right now? Or do we just want to skip
That
it?
last part was a yes or no.
Let's just move on. That's fine. That's fine.
The city has a strategic partnership agreement with these areas, and so pursuant to that, that is outside the annexation regulation. We've essentially gone through all those steps. They consented, they petitioned, and so this is just an ongoing thing. We're outside of that. No matter what the legislation does, pursuant to the SBA, they will eventually become yours.
Okay, follow it, Mayor.
Follow up.
Thank you, because I mean, we're building this fund and we're under legislation now for annexation, so I'm just asking that question for clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Did I skip a slide?
Skip.
Thank you. Next, we have law enforcement funds, and these are restricted in use and must be used specifically for law enforcement purposes. With the uncertainty nature of receiving these funds, we only budget for interest, and as we receive those funds, they'll come to council for an amendment to be used. The state seizures, we do have some balance in there, and that's being used by police for their drone, first responder program, and PD timekeeping pilot program.
Councilmember Von Hart.
Just a quick question on that slide there. Revenues go down substantially from 26 projection versus 27 budget.
Yes, because in 26, we actually received some seizure funds for these. If we receive any in the next year, we will come with council and adopt them at that point. Just because they're so unpredictable, we don't want to budget something that we may not see.
Thank you.
And the city supplements police services for Greatwood and New Territory community associations through the contract police fund. This fund supports 5 full-time police officers, 2 in Greatwood and 3 in New Territory, as well as the related operation and maintenance expenditures. So you will see we did have a reduction from 26 to 27. That is also in connection, we purchased a couple patrol vehicles from there.
Member Jackson.
So this, this time that the officers are spending on these contracts, does it come through our payroll? And does it add to our OT costs and that sort of thing?
So these positions are specifically budgeted in these funds. So when you look at each payroll salary, it will say that they're being paid out of this fund itself and not through general fund. So it won't be reimbursed, but actually paid there. And the contract is they have to spend 95% of their time in that area. The 5% is just in case they get a call outside and respond to it. As part of the statewide settlement agreements from the court judges against companies, Texas is expected to receive $1.6 billion. And this is over 18 years. So of this, $239 million is designated for cities. And so as funds are allocated, as we receive them, we also bring them back to council to amend the budget for that. But they are split between police and fire for directly supporting public safety and emergency responses. Our next fund is our PEG fund, our Public Educational Government Fund, which captures franchise fees revenues that are restricted and used for purchasing capital goods that support broadcast operations for the city. Fiscal year 27 expenditures include replacing the switcher, the replacement switcher for the council chamber, and other council capital costs to enhance providing the PEG channel capacity, programming, and transmissions. So it's really helping make sure we can get all those council meetings. We have nothing budgeted in our fund. I am struggling. So we are done. We have spent all of the funds in it. We are still waiting for the invitation to close out, but all of the interest we did receive on these funds will be transferred as part of our projections to a new public safety replacement fund, which we will walk through next week. Our Public Arts Fund was created in fiscal year 23 to separate public art projects from other capital projects. And like Devin mentioned earlier, this is mostly funded through our 4B and that quality of life type items. Some specific things that they have in plan is some of those little libraries and different items to really help that quality of life through the city of Sugar Land. And there is a portion that does come from the general fund I wanted to highlight. It's very small, but that is for the maintenance of any of our art, and that cannot be funded through 4B. This is a new fund. It's connected with the Rye Hill development. Part of the agreement was creating a capacity for a new fire station. And so as you can see, we will plan to be about 27,000 by the end of this year. And our final special revenue fund is a new one as well. It's our grants fund. Like we talked about in our general fund, we moved out all of our grants and also deployments so that we have a better way of tracking those ins and outs, and it's not getting lumped into all of our general fund expenditures. So in here, you will see the revenues that are brought in is planned grants that we have already received, agreements to receive for them. The reimbursements are planned deployment reimbursements that we will receive as we send more people out to help other cities. And we receive that reimbursement back from the state. And so it's mostly within our police and fire department, you'll see those revenues. There is one change to this fund as of yesterday, that we are planning to receive a city clerk grant of about $60,000 to help promote voter turnout. So that is a revenue and expenditure in this. So the key thing with this fund is while we plan to be able to use these funds, it won't be usable until we receive the revenues to back up those funds. So this is the budget capacity. So any questions on special revenue funds? So next is our next steps. We have one more budget workshop. It's been a great August month. So we will finish with 3 of our internal service funds and then with any other follow-up items. Last night, you guys were sent the unfunded requests for the general fund. So if you have any specific questions on that, we will greatly appreciate it, and so that we can plan for whatever discussion you would like next week. But then we will have a follow-up on the feral hogs. And then lastly, our key other council meeting agenda items. September 1st is when we'll have the public hearing on our fee ordinance. And we will also have a public hearing on the pit assessment for the park at Eldridge. And we will bring back the fiscal year 26 projections. September 8th is our public hearing on the property tax rate. And then September 15th is the adoption of the budget, the adoption of the property tax, and second readings on our fee and pit ordinance.
So, any final questions for Shalay? Okay, so again, next week we'll talk about internal services. We can do follow-up items such as the feral hog proposal, and also we can talk about the instructor pay split at IPRC and any other items like that. So having no further business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.